Welcome back to Big Asian Energy. Have you ever sat through a long day and at the end of the day, you're kind of just like down on yourself? Like you're not sure who you are. You're not sure what you're doing, what you're trying to do, how you're trying to lead your own life, let alone anyone else. If you ever experienced a day like that, man, today the conversation we're going to have is for you. I am here talking to honestly one like just one of the coolest people because if you just go check out her like Instagram, you'll see what I mean. Her energy is infectious, her power is undeniable. We're here with Nayan Jiggy Yoon, who's a mindset and leadership coach and a motivational speaker. And when I say motivational, I genuinely mean motivational. She founded this program called Vulnerability is Dope. She led a Asians grieving program, and now she's launching a leader of impact program, which is a 12-week leadership and self-empowerment coaching program for Asian women. She is a queer Korean immigrant, a type 1 diabetic, a former athlete who is a pro at turning adversity into fuel. Welcome to the show, Jiggy.
Thank you so much. That was awesome.
I
I love hearing
genuinely
other
like
people's opinions about me because I'm like, wow, I'm so cool.
You are so cool. By the way, if you're listening to this in audio, like I said, grab your phone, go to the audio notes, check out Jiggy's Instagram, and you immediately get what I mean. Your energy is so infectious and it bounces off the screen. I can't wait to dive into your story because I look at you and I'm like, yeah, I feel motivated just chatting with you.
Thank you so much.
All right, so Jiggy, give us a little background because you've been through so much in your life, and
Yeah.
I think there's something really inspirational just in that. I like you don't have to trauma dump if you don't want to, but like just give us a little bit of a glimpse at how did you become this powerhouse of motivation?
Oh wow. Okay. Well, hello everybody. TLDR. I won't get into it too much unless you ask for more context throughout today's time. Long story short, I was born and raised in Korea. At the time, I've been knowing I'm gay since I was young, but I didn't know the word in Korea. So I didn't know the word until I came to America when I was 10 years old. I started off the journey near Detroit, Michigan. And at the time when I was young, trying to learn English, there was this thing called Yahoo Chats. And a 10-year-old shouldn't have been on that platform, but I was talking to a bunch of strangers, and there was this forum called gay, bi, lesbian, and I was listening and I asked them what does this mean? And they told me like gay means lesbian means bi means, and I realized like, oh, so experiencing how I'm feeling and what I'm going through is not just me. There's actually a community of people who experience the same thing. So that's kind of how I learned about the word, like not learned about the word, but just understanding more of my identity and who I am. From Michigan, I moved over to Queens, New York, and that's where I owe Queens my life. Queens built me. It's everything I am, and from there, I went to school in Penn State. I went to Pennsylvania for college, and that's when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. That's when right before that, all right, right before that, the summer that I graduate my senior year of high school, I lived alone for a bit, like, completely alone. My mom no one was in the house. I was living alone. My mom had moved to the South to try to, like, make a new career happen, and what I found out was that as she was moving, she had gotten a heart attack and had to get an emergency surgery, and 'cause I'm the youngest of the family, they never so then one day she just, like, appeared back in Queens, and I was like, "Oh, you're back." And then from there, once I graduated high school and that summer between high school and college, there was a 5 alarm fire, apartment built. 5 alarm fire means that it takes 5 fire trucks to put out the fire. And what I thought would be temporary because people don't often think like a tragedy like that can happen so quickly, but that's what losing home to fire does. And so I lost everything in 1 hour. So when I say everything, it's not just materialistic things because my parents are immigrants. I myself am an immigrant, and everything that we worked so hard for just disappeared in 1 hour. But not only that, psychologically, it's also that I lost a place to call home, and that just sparked my further journey, because I was already an immigrant, but losing a home as an immigrant is it started my further journey of scarcity mindset, and, like, sense of belonging and stuff like that, so, um, I hate to say it this way, but I was out of home, like, saying that homeless is harsh to say, but, like, I was, and we had to live in shelters, uh, we had to go live in motel rooms. We had to go live in some random studio apartment in Brooklyn, New York, and, like, when I say Brooklyn, I don't mean, like, the cutesy, like, gentrified Brooklyn, I mean, like, Brooklyn, Brooklyn. And
Actual Brooklyn, yeah.
yeah, and when I went off to college, I made this dark humor, trauma response, like, "Oh, losing everything to fire helped me pack for college and pack lighter for college." And the dorm rooms became my home. Then whenever I got to New York, I would live in strangers' basements with no windows. And anybody who knows my story, I constantly always talk about this basement with no windows. But I emphasize the no windows part because I just really highly recommend no one ever live in a space without a window because the devil lives down there. I really had a lot of dark thoughts. One time I had a dream after my mom had passed. She was in my dream and she was talking to me in the voice of the devil, like, "Do not live in a place with
Wow.
a window." But yeah, when they say when you can make it out of New York, you can make it anywhere, and it was true. Like, I was young and figuring out the world on my own, in a way that no one my age or thereafter really get to experience. Um, yeah, and then in college, I was also diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, so getting used to that was a whole thing. My mom was then diagnosed with cancer, and then she had passed away my junior year. Uh, Fast forward, life has it that I moved across the country to California, doing the dang thing here right now. And then 3 years ago, my dad passed away. So a lot of stories of grief in different ways, a lot of loss, a lot of trauma, a lot of grieving the loss of a loved one, grieving and longing for a home, place to call home, homophobia, all in between, because I came out when Ellen DeGeneres was the only queer representation on television. I didn't have anybody else. I used to think that being gay was for white people. Um,
Wait,
just
what?
figuring out life in a very interesting way on my own.
Wow.
That's the TLDR. Can
Jeez.
you believe it?
That
Take
was
a breath, everyone.
intense. Whew. Yeah. Take a sip of water. Just take a moment. Um, Obviously there was so much grief there, and there was so much loss, all at the same time. I mean, to go through it sounds like a very short period of time, losing your home, losing your mom, losing your dad, and at the same time, living literally underground in a place without windows and having to still find your identity. How did you push through that? I feel like a lot of people that would have broken some people.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes ever is by 50 Cent. And it was
Motivational speaker and spiritual guru 50 Cent. Yeah.
I'm from Queens. So 50 Cent has a song called Many Men, and
Hmm.
in it, he has a line where he says, "He got hit like I got hit, but he ain't fucking breathing." And that speaks to me so much. How did I get through it is although growing up, my mother had instilled in me the faith in God, in the existence of God. She was Catholic, and, Catholicism never really jived with me,
Mhm.
but there was this in my world, in my belief, that there is an existence called God. But when I was going through all this and people will keep telling me, like, everything happens for a reason and God loves you so much and, like, everything happens because of God. When I would keep hearing that, I'm like, "Okay, so all this loss is happening because of God." And so I couldn't help but think that God hated me. I couldn't help but think that God created me to have something to laugh at and make fun of because he was so busy helping everybody else. That's where I was at. And so when I was going through all of this, like, I'm sure God has never left me. He has always gone before me and he knows the calling upon my life. I didn't know that back then. And so what kept getting me through is hope, and that's it. I didn't listen to no motivational speaker. YouTube was, like, barely a thing back then. Just hope that I could only have self-belief that one day all of this will make sense, and one day my story will help other people. I have a tattoo on my arm that says, "The size of your obstacle is the size of your future," and that whether that's made up or not, delusion and hope is it delusion or is it hope? That was the only thing that got me through, like, all of this will make sense one day, but, like, that's easier said than done, of course, like, if you were there, I mean, I have a history of harming myself and trying to end my life with my own medicine, with my own medical supplies, and that's the another thing about having a chronic illness is that my medicine, my medical supplies can either help me live or kill me, and that's up to me.
Hmm.
Like, I
Can
can end
you
up in the
can you,
hospital.
uh can you elaborate a little bit about what you meant by that or what you were going through?
Yeah, so this happened my sophomore year in college. This was after, trigger warning. Uh, this was sophomore year of college, and this is after the fire, this is after my diagnosis, this is after mom's heart attack, this is around the time my mom got diagnosed with cancer. I said, "This is bullshit. Life is way too like, what is the point?" Basically, there was no joy in my life, there was no winning in my life, I just grew up watching my parents struggle all the time, like, there was no inspiration or access to possibly thinking ever that one day my life will ever change positive. And I think I just got tired and sick of it, so, at the same time, like, mental health wasn't really, like, a conversation back then, access to mental health resources wasn't really, like, a hot topic back then. So, I didn't know what grieving was, I didn't know what trauma was, so even when I lost my home to fire, I try to act as if everything was the same. Like, I still went to school, I still tried to make friends, I couldn't understand my rage, I couldn't understand why I would snap at people so other than the fact that I'm from New York. Like, I couldn't understand my rage and the way that I snap at people and all of that stuff, so I don't to this day, I don't know what inspired this, but I got to a point where I just wanted to end it all, and so I overdosed on my insulin. But I don't know where that idea came from because it's not like you see that on I've never seen that on television, like, I don't know where they came from. But the reason why I also mentioned that mystery is because a few years later, I was on a type 1 diabetic Facebook group, and a wife of somebody was mentioning how her husband did the same thing the night before and found him unconscious on the floor. And thankfully she did so that they took him to the ER and all of that stuff, but, like, I'm the mystery to me is, like, okay, it wasn't just me who has this idea, where does this idea come from? But at the same time, like, we know the power of our medicine in front of us. We know that, like, having this illness is really freaking hard, like, even if you treated yourself or did your best to treat yourself perfectly, the illness has a mind of its own, and people can still end up in the hospital no matter how well they take care of themselves, and so we understand the power of this medicine, insulin, and that, like, this can truly, like, kill us or help us live, and it's up to me.
Hmm. Wow. Man, that was take another breath.
Take many breaths.
I take multiple breaths and take a moment and just be grateful for the breaths that you get to take wherever you are and whatever you're going through. Um, because damn, that's a dark time. How did you navigate going through that into now being not just like a motivational speaker, a coach, and somebody who helps people find their self-confidence. I think that particular piece I think is so powerful because like you went and if I could be as direct as possible here, but life kicked you in the nuts when you were down is the only way I could properly describe
I mean,
what
I wouldn't know what that feels like, but
I mean, like, truly,
perhaps
like,
maybe.
in the metaphorical right? Like, damn, how did you one, I mean, like, to go from that to now what you do professionally is you go around to schools, to organizations, to companies, and you help people do 2 things, it sounds like, right? One is to help them process grief, and I think that's hard. I've lost people in my past, and like, grief can be like a dark cloud that never leaves. It just never goes anywhere. And 2 is that you sounds like you were able to transform that into or at least I don't know if transform is the right word, but like you found light and now you get to give that light to others. So how do you what was that journey like?
So you're asking me how I became who I am today?
Yeah, like how did you one, how did you go from that to where you are now?
You know what? This is the part where I have to mention somebody, and, yeah, this will be my first time, like, saying his name since his passing. Um, Dr. Christopher Yuill of Penn State has changed my life. Um, Man, he passed away, like, 3, 4 weeks ago. Um, I met him my freshman year of college, so when the fire happened, I was not yet diagnosed, I don't think, but my mom had the heart attack and stuff like that. The first day of his class, he took a dollar bill and burned it in front of 800 students and asked all of us, "What does this mean to you?" I said, "Oh, this is my kinda guy." He's the one who introduced me to the word vulnerability.
Hmm.
There was a homework assignment where we had to study Brené Brown, and at the time, Brené Brown didn't have the millions of views that she had. Her TED Talk on vulnerability only had, like, a couple thousand views. And he had us, like, study vulnerability and Brené Brown's work, and so that's how vulnerability came into my life, and, like, vulnerability is still wouldn't exist if it wasn't for him, you know?
Mhm.
He had us read all these books. He taught me how to journal, meditate, raise self-awareness. What is emotional intelligence? He had us walking around campus barefoot, hugging trees. Like, he was a hippie for
Wow.
sure. He was doing this to college students. You understand? He was
Ahead of
doing
his
this to
time.
college students. He taught us
Jeez.
nonviolent communication. He taught us how to look at humans as they are, not what we want them to be. Just he had this world view of earth connection, universe, human, like, all of this, and when my mom died, I didn't have a therapist, I had him. Um,
Mm,
he I didn't go through therapy, I stuck by his side, I was his TA, I was his lecture assistant, I helped him write his book, like, he really I don't believe in coincidences at all, but, like, he really helped me start that entire, like, journey of everything I am today, like
mm,
self-awareness, healing, grieving, communication, human connection, like all everything I know and I am, he
mm,
started this journey with me. Um, and how many people get to say that they had a professor in college
mm,
who shows them this other side of the world? And
mm,
I'm coming from like Queens, New York, and I
mm,
went through all this trauma just before that. Like, what? But yeah, he really tapped into my curiosity. Like, what
mhm,
is the world and what is human connection and all of that stuff. So I've become really curious about that stuff. Um, but another fun fact is that I used to rap. So I've always had a mic in my hand. I've always been in front of people. I've always performed in front of people on stage with a microphone in my hand. I've always told my story through a platform. So, like to a point where record label wanted to sign me. They flew me out to Vegas, and my parents said no. But when I stopped making music, I think that in me want to try to tell my story. And so when I graduated college and got a full-time job and I was sitting in that office, I always knew that I'm supposed to be doing something else. And I would be the only person at the time, podcasts were like a brand new thing, and I would be the only person in the office just like not listening to music, but like listening to podcast episodes. And there was this motivational speaker named Eric Thomas who had just started his podcast. I was listening to him all the time, and then I was like, I think I'm supposed to be doing what he's doing. So, um, there was just no way that I would let my story go. No way. I've been through too much shit. I was like, why would I let this story go to waste? No way. So I remember when I started reading this book called The School of Greatness by Lewis Howes. And Lewis Howes at the time was still to come up with the podcast. And I told myself that once the bookmark I used for this book was my 2 weeks notice to my job. And I said, when I finish this book, I'm gonna turn in this 2 weeks notice. Surely one of the advice that the book gave was that, hey, if you're about to go on your entrepreneurial journey, ask your friends if they support you and see who's in your corner and who's not. Like, don't waste time trying to convince people, just find out. So I was like, "Bet." So once I finished the book, I turned in my 2 weeks notice and I called every single one of my best friends and I said, "Hey, I'm quitting my job to become a motivational speaker. You in or you out? You in or no?
Mm,
I ain't got time to
mhm.
wait." Thank God I love my friends. Every single one of them said, "I got you. I love you. I can't see you doing anything else. This makes so much sense. If you need a roof over your head and food on the table, I got you." Like, amen to that. So
Wow.
that's how
The
that
power of
started.
community.
Yeah, but that's how the speaking journey started. It was just that, I don't know, redemption? Maybe. There was just no way that I was gonna let my story go to waste. And I just
Hmm.
always had this innate desire to wanna help people as well. Um,
Mm.
and I know now after my parents have passed and, like, I know now that my whole curiosity about stoicism or human psychology or vulnerability, like, all of that stuff actually comes from my dad because when he passed away and I was cleaning out his apartment, I found Emotional Intelligence 2.0 on his bookshelves.
Hmm.
I too was reading Emotional Intelligence 2.0, and we never got to talk about it. So now in my bookshelf, I have his copy and my copy. And never got to talk about it. And I never knew that I get that side of myself from him. And I know that with my mom, like my resilience and work ethic and perseverance and grit, I know I get that from her. And also I know that I get my desire to help people from her as well. Like both of my parents, yeah, but my mom as well. So I'm literally walking DNA of both of my parents combined. But I just think, like, there was no one day something clicked, and I was like, "That's what I." It wasn't like that. I just think that it was always a calling upon my life, and I just realized it and said yes.
I love that. And I love that part of the story where you said you found, the, emotional intelligence 2.0. It's, like, right in your DNA. It's part of your past. You're part of your blood. And I'm such a big believer in that, like, we don't this idea that we find what we're supposed to do, like, it's this thing outside of us. It's like, no, no, it's always been there with us. It's about deconditioning all the stuff that we've been taught that we had to put on, all this various layers that we've been taught we're supposed to do, and all throughout. Um, I love the story of your professor. Can you tell us his name again, just so I could remember it?
Yeah, his name is Doctor Christopher Ewell.
Dr. Christopher Yuell. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's so powerful. And also, like, what a trailblazer. That is not a kind of professor that I had when I was in when I was in college.
He was
That's for
one
sure.
of a kind. He's a legend to me.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Think about how many lives he got to change, and now through you, how many lives you're changing because of him, you know,
That's
in that
exactly
way.
right. That's exactly right. He he taught me that how vulnerable it is to be a teacher and a leader, and that leadership and teaching people is trust between 2 people. Like, just because somebody is a teacher or a leader doesn't mean that the person is holier than thou and they're more powerful, and therefore everybody must bow down. That's not how it works. The learner must also they must earn the trust of the learner. And also, hopefully, the learner understands the vulnerability and that when somebody puts themselves out there, there might be mistakes along the way, part of continuing to learn. And I always say, it's about being perfect. It's about having the innate curiosity to continue learning and be fascinated by it, continue the curiosity, be fascinated by it, be excited about it, be so willing to share that information with other people. That's what a leader is. It's not they're not leaders because they're perfect. Ain't nobody perfect. They're leaders because they're so curious and obsessed about this thing and they're excited about it. They want to tell the world about it. And also we're all human in that we might make mistakes along the way and that's the vulnerable piece, but as long as the learner understands that like that's a part of also the learning journey, like teaching and leading takes 2 people to create that trust, and it's supposed to be a beautiful journey. It's not supposed to be like a dictatorship, you know? And the piece that you said about, like, how he's impacted me, therefore I get to impact all these people, that's exactly right. It's like leadership is also about planting seeds, and do you equip the person with the tools and the skills to be able to water this seed, and how much in the environment and, like, all of this stuff, and it's supposed to be planting a seed, and it's just so happens that when he planted a seed in me, I was one of the ones who was about to go gung ho with it and just run with it for the rest of my life. And that's another thing a leader does is that you're not supposed to be able to touch every single person on earth. That is literally impossible. But if you're able to plant a seed into a few people and they're able to take it and plant their seeds into their communities, like that's how it's supposed to happen. You know? So, as long as you are impactful and effective and you know what you're doing, I believe that's what a leader is. I also wanna mention before I forget, you asked me a question
Yeah.
beforehand about how I gained all this confidence and, like, in
Yeah.
becoming
Yeah,
who
yeah,
I am.
yeah. I was just gonna dive into that because you
Yeah,
speaking of leaders of impact, you
yeah,
have a program coming out for
yes,
Asian women
yeah,
and to develop their confidence, right? Like,
yeah.
tell me more about let's start here. Why Asian women and why this topic?
The topic came first before Asian women did. Oh, man, do I really wanna get into it like this? Oh, okay. Okay, I'll
Someone was
share it,
telling me
alright.
something really important about vulnerability. I don't know who it
Yeah, yeah,
was, but
yeah, okay. Okay. Alright, so excuse me for the rest of this podcast. I'm Christian AF. Like
do
the
it.
past is past. Who I am today, I love Jesus. I believe in the calling upon my life. Let's just get that straight out the way, okay? Here we go. So one day, I read my Bible every single morning and I journal every single morning. And um, I hear God. I talk to God. I hear God. Point blank period. So one day, God was talking to me about the LA fires. And this especially started to happen around the LA fires time because, like, I've been through my own fire experience. It's a very unique
Yeah.
experience. Um, it's kind of like a if you know, you know kind of experience, and so when the fires were happening, I saw so many people panicking and functioning off of adrenaline, and while all of the volunteering, all of the donating, like, all of that is so wonderful, like, I'm so inspired by the spirit of Los Angeles. At the same time, I was like, "Yo, this is gonna take a really long time, like, at least 5, 10 years, if that, and also by the help of the administration, if that, like, you gotta pace yourself." And I was looking around and I was like, "Oh, people don't know how to lead in chaos. People don't know how to lead through tragedy, whether you yourself is going through it or other people are going through it." And that's fair because no one is supposed to go through tragedy. You're not supposed to. It's just that I have. And so I was like, well, somebody's gotta be thinking a little clearly here, and some of the choices that some people were making with their initiatives, I was like, I understand the intention, but I don't think you understand the impact that it might have. It might not come out to be helpful. I think you think it's helpful because of your understanding of the situation, but unless you're going through this situation, you might not understand that's actually like not helpful at all.
Are you talking about like the people who are dealing with the fire?
The people who are trying to help the victims of the fire.
Got it. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
But
everybody
they
wants to help
don't know
so
what
much.
the need is. They don't know what the real like, what is it like to be on the other side, to have lost everything the way like you have experienced it,
Right.
to truly in an hour see your life go to 0 and that trauma that you go through. Right, they
Yeah,
don't get that.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and, like, this is not the time to tell people to stay strong, like,
Hmm.
this is not the time to tell people to have hope, like, I mean, if it works for some people, great, but if somebody were to tell me to, like, have hope, I would probably smack you in the face. I'm like, "There ain't no room for hope right now, I just lost everything," and, like, the processing of it, the grieving of it, to trying to make sense out of it, all of it is very traumatic. But anyhow, so I was just, like, praying about that, and I've also been, like, wondering, is LA my home forever, or am I supposed to go somewhere else? And, like, the LA fires helped me realize, like, no, I'm gonna start calling LA home, and I'm gonna start settling down here, and I wanna give back to the city of Los Angeles in my own way, as I know how. Everybody keep doing y'all thing. I know how to do, and I know I want to help the leaders who can impact their community. Um, and I started to have this conversation with God, and God was like, "You're supposed to be the lead." And I was like, "What's that mean? Like, what do you mean by leader's leader?" And God was like, "You're supposed to be the leaders for the leader of the leaders." And so then I went through this whole full of like, what does that mean? Well, it means that like to be a leader's leader, you have to be the example. You have to be it's holding yourself to a higher standard. You do have to present yourself in a certain way, know certain things, behave a certain way, speak a certain way. You have to not better as an ego, but just at a higher standard for yourself in quality. And I was like, and then I started talking to myself in Korean, and I was like, "Oh, you're supposed to be like 더 나은 사람." Which means, like, it's not it doesn't mean, like, a better person, like, better as an ego, just greater as in quality, like, admirable, more so. But the thing is, when I said 더, more, 나는, better, 사람, person, 나는 is my name. So that's the moment I wrote that down, 더 나은 사람, I wrote that down and I circled my name, I looked at it and I heard my dad laughing. Because my dad always used to be like, "나니 너무 대단하다. Like, you're amazing. You're incredible. You make me so proud." Like, he would, like whenever I would tell him something that I did, he would laugh, and I'd be like, "Why are you laughing?" And he'd be like, "You're just so incredible." Like, so I think he just took a lot of pride in my name, and, so when that moment happened, I just heard my dad laughing, and I was like, "It was in me all along." Like, I'm continuing to learn who I'm supposed to be. So in that moment, I was like, "Ah, this is God's next assignment for me." So I was like, just continuing to ask God throughout the days and weeks and months, like, what does this look like? So one of the ways was to create this coaching program. I've always coached, but I've never done a cohort of my own. I've either coached one-on-one or I've coached organizations and corporate people or students, a group of students. Like, I've always been hired to help an already existing organization, but I've never created a cohort of my own, like, call them my army of bad bitches. And I'm so but I'm just so curious as to what kind of people like because I'm so thankful that I get to attract really amazing people in my life, and I'm so excited for
Amazing.
all of these people that I attract into my life to, like, meet each other and create this awesome badass community. But that's one way. So, Originally, it was gonna be for, like, men and women, everybody. It was gonna be for BIPOC community because I'm from Queens and I love serving the entire BIPOC community. But the more I prayed about it, God was like, "No, you're gonna make it for Asian women." And I was like, "4K, why?" I was like, "I thought it was so close." But then my mom came to mind, and it's this the spirit of resilience and perseverance that's out for me. Like, women are just so badass, but then at the end of the day, like, some Asian women just never get to get their flowers. They never get to get their shine. They never get to speak up. They never get to put their foot down. And then I looked up a research and it says that 2.7% of Asian women are in C-suite positions at Fortune 500 companies, no matter how qualified they are. But even though they're all also like, and it's like, when it comes to confidence and self-confidence, it ain't about at the end of the day, capitalism. People don't get opportunities because they're qualified. They get opportunities because they have the audacity, because they have the access to
Yeah.
resources, because they are charming, they got the followers or something. It's not because of a
Yeah.
qualification. And because also maybe perhaps specifically in Asian culture, the women are supposed to just keep our hands closed and say yes, yes, and just be there and like comfortable and shy and not say anything and express ourselves. And this is so funny. I think like a lot of the Asian community, a lot of the Asian elders growing up had a problem with me because I'm that loud Asian girl who's like got tattoos and piercings, and I'm from Queens and I'm a rapper and I say whatever I want to. And they saw me as problematic. But am I problematic or am I a trailblazer? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So once I started to explore that idea, it just kind of, God doesn't make any mistakes, and that started to make sense. So I was like, all right, let's see who I can help here. Cause I've never done something specifically for Asian women before. Like, though a lot of my followers and people who love my work are Asian women, I've never cater something for them. So, but it makes sense. It like 100% makes sense. It coming to me so easily. I'm at a point where it's like, oh, why didn't I think about that sooner? But yeah, so that's the program. And then the other segue is that I'm going to start doing also monthly self-empowerment workshops. I'm partnering up with a co-working space here in LA. And we're gonna do monthly workshops. And I told them that I want to do it for the rest of the year. So that option is free to lower cost for access purposes and just continue to give back to Los Angeles.
Hmm. That's
Ta-da!
that's I love that story, and it makes all of the sense.
Yeah, it
Like I
does.
said, anyone who spent more than half a millisecond hanging out with you, it's like, yeah, obviously this is what you should be doing because this is the power, this is the gift, right? Like this is the light that you get to share with the world.
Yeah.
Okay, but I want to hear this myself. Like what is the cuz like self-confidence, I think a lot of people look at that as like, yeah, you either have it or you don't, right? Like some people just have the charm, like you said, some people just have the charisma, some people just have that vibe. Um how how does someone gain that empowerment, that leadership, that je ne sais quoi, whatever it is, that like, I just don't give a fuck, like energy that you so clearly exude with everything you do?
Yeah. I think, people look at me and think, "Oh, that's just the way that Jiggy is." Like, that's Jiggy. Like, that's for Jiggy. It's not for me. I could never be like that. That's for Jiggy. But it's like, first of all, you can't go about life thinking that, like, that's for that person, not for me. Like, you can't be doing that, girl. Like, stop that. Second, I too was once upon a time very, like, the polite, like, just because I'm from New York doesn't mean like, Queens built me for sure, and, like, yes, I started to train myself, like, when I was very young, but at the same time, like, growing up in New York really does teach you something and how to, like, stand up for yourself and things like that, but at the same time, I'm still human, I'm still a woman, I'm still an Asian woman. There are many but you know what? I think the thing is that I think me real my queer journey, I think, is what really set the foundation for me, um, because back in my day, when I came out, um, that was during the time when people would be like, "Oh, that person's for sure gay because they're masculine presenting."
Mhm.
Like you look at Ellen and it's like, "That's a lesbian." There were no one saying like, "Oh, that's a femme presenting lesbian." Like, no one really did that. It was either like masculine lesbians or flamboyantly fabulous gay men. That was it. And what I used to and so I experienced a lot of homophobia. Like, the queer journey for me was not cute. Like, a lot of homophobia from my own family, my mom, my brother, just people strangers in the street. I've been chased out of bathrooms. I've been called the F word. In college, there were people who have never met a gay person before, so they like, this group of sorority girls will, like, all talk shit to me in the locker room. When I used to go to job fairs, these corporate folks who are there to, like, interview people, they would, like, stare at me, point fingers at me, like, put my resume at the bottom of the stack because I was the only girl wearing a suit. Even in the Asian elder community, like, they would all and this is something that I'm still recovering from, but, like, the Asian community will look fingers at me because I mentioned this before, but, like, with the tattoos and the piercings and the way that I am and the way that I dress, like, these were, like, stereotypical Asian girls. Like, all constant judgment from left and right for everything I am and present myself to be without you even get to know. And so, there were moments that it would knock me down and, like, all of that stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm just like, at this point in my life, I've been through too much shit for anybody to tell me I'm not there's no you if you don't like me, that's your problem. I had to come to that point because I just thought fitting into the mold was always so boring. Boring. Like, well, I don't know. It's just boring, and I'm like, if you don't have to be the
There is nothing boring about you
stereotypical
now.
stereotypical, predictable, like, uninteresting, just like everybody else, a duplicate of everybody else, like, that's what you like, then do that, but and also, I think hip hop had to do a lot with it, because me growing up in New York and, like, being so inspired by hip hop, and I used to just like, me rapping and meeting all these different kind of people, like, you have to have individuality to succeed in hip hop and to be an artist, and because hip hop is the one area that's celebrated my individuality, I think that helped me, grow my confidence as well, but it was just repetition
Mhm.
for years and years. You have to stand up for yourself again and again. You have to believe in yourself again and again. It's not just like one day I woke up and I got it and that's it. It's like, no, I'm tested again and again. I came out with vulnerability as though my t-shirt line. I used to live in San Diego by the Marine Corps base, and all the Marines would say, like, I agree 100% with you. Like, what the fuck do you mean vulnerability is dope? Like, da da da, that's weakness and da da da. I would argue with Marines and like drill instructors. Like, you can tell me shit. Like, um, and at the end of the day, like, today, like, what I love about myself is that, like, as a mental health motivational speaker, if anybody I had to fight for self-compassion back in the day, like, I had to fight for the power of vulnerability back in the day, because I believe in this thing before it got all popular on social media, and I would talk so much about vulnerability and self-compassion and how self-compassion helps resilience. I've been talking about this. This is not new to me. So nowadays, when people try to talk shit and be like, try to test me, I'm like, what are you gonna do? Fight me? Because I get to say that now because I've been training combat sports for so long that I'm like, you know what I like about myself? You can talk shit all you want, but then I'm gonna talk about your traumatic childhood, and you're probably gonna cry, and you wanna fight me, go ahead, like, you might not win, like, I'm a girl, but I know how to put up, so which way you wanna go down? Let me know. Pick one. Choose one. So, that's where I'm at now. You too can become
Oh,
a badass by
yeah.
taking something.
Hopefully without having to go through the shit you had to go through, right?
Yeah, and that's what I always say. I always tell people, like, "Yo, don't wait until your parents pass away to learn this lesson. Don't wait until
Wow.
your house burns down for you to appreciate everything that you had in life." Like, I'm like, "I went through all this shit for 10 plus years so I can inspire you in 1 hour." Like, you better appreciate it and just go along with it. Yeah.
Yeah. 10 years of difficulty distilled down into a single hour. Wow. So tell me a little bit more about the program, what people can expect.
The program is called Leaders of Impact, and when I say leaders, it means that you don't it's not that you have to have the title at work at your job position to be a manager, director. It doesn't have to be just the title because even if somebody has the title, it doesn't mean that they have the character. Bump
Hmm.
that.
Oh, whoa, whoa,
Sometimes
whoa! I need. Hold up, hold up. I need to make sure that that line did not accidentally slip by anyone. Can you repeat that just
you just slow
because?
down.
Because
Just
that was a
because
banger
somebody's
line, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, we need to give that line the gravitas and spotlight it deserves.
just because somebody has the title of a leader doesn't mean that you have the character of a leader.
I need to let this sentence stay because I think that there are leaders around the world who need to hear this right now. Okay, yeah.
That sounded personal. You put your trust into that.
That there's it's I'm not targeting that towards anybody, just whoever needs to hear
Mm.
it.
But yeah,
Yeah,
so
keep going.
whether or not you have the title of a leader or not, whether it's a job position, whether it's you're a community leader, whether you are a coach or you're a teacher, professor, um, but at the same time, you could also just have a leader heart in the servant heart,
Mm,
like a leader in your
mhm.
community, in your friendships, in your relationships. Maybe you're the eldest daughter, who knows? Like the heart, the character and the heart of a leader is something who wants to serve people and impact people. But at the same time, know that because it's innately in you. Perhaps it's that maybe you haven't tapped into it yet, but you're curious about it because it's always been and those are the kind of people that I want to work with and just the continuous curiosity of, like, continuing to learn and not coming up here thinking that you know everything. If you know everything, you take in my program, you know? But if you know everything, then why aren't you where you want to be? Where you think you're supposed to be, huh? But and also it's, the women who just I just had an interview with an applicant yesterday. She knows she has the skill set. She knows she's got the talent and the spirit. It's just that she's sitting on it. And it's kinda like, why is she sitting on it? Why is she kinda hiding a little bit? And she's out here hyping other people up, but no one's hyping her up. And that's another thing about leaders is that we're constantly pouring out to people, but who's pouring into us? Um, and anybody who's just a part of the program is also getting down to the nitty-gritty details of the program. You're going to learn not only confidence building, you're going to learn how to, become a confident public speaker, and, like, if you wanna become a professional speaker, fine, let's do that. If you wanna learn how to do contracts and agreements and negotiations, like, let's do that too. But when it comes to confident public speaking, it's not for you to start sounding like me. It's for you to become your most powerful, authentic storyteller that you can be. Because you could be sitting on something really brilliant and amazing and inspiring, but because your delivery sucks, it's not landing. And I can't tell you how many CEOs I've seen with incredible stories who are so boring. Like, I will go to the conference so excited to see them, but then they're so boring. They're monotone. They don't even know what they're saying at that point. I think they black out, and then they go overtime. And then when I think they're done, they still got Q&A left, and I'm like, I want to listen to the next speaker as well as you're delaying a conference, and I just think that that's something so unprofessional, like, people don't think that being such a big part of being a professional speaker, but I just think that, yo, you gotta deliver effectively, you gotta speak powerfully, but you also have to be technical and on time with these things and be professional, so
Mm.
I'm gonna teach all those things. I'm also going to teach, presentation and deck design. How can you set yourself up for success as a presenter so that the material that you teach is something that is easy and exciting for you to teach, while also it can be applicable to the audience and also they are able to process the information. And I always walk into a room. I don't assume that everybody is like, this is weird, but like, I don't walk into a room thinking that no one has experienced trauma. Like, I just, like, assume somebody in here has this experienced trauma. Somebody in here has scarcity mindset. Somebody in here has a difficult relationship with money. Somebody in here has neurodivergence. Is it OCD? Is it ADHD? Is it autism? Is it something else? All of this, actually affects the learning experience. And so then it's like, what are the colors in the presentation? What are the fonts? What are the sizes of the fonts? How many words are on the slide? Do you have videos? Do you have memes? Or like, how do you engage? What are the nonverbal and verbal ways you engage the audience so that they can stay engaged instead of getting bored? And then how do they apply what they learn practical after like great speaker leaves an impact so much that like that it lasts. Again, planting the seed, it lasts after the workshop or the presentation, you know. So how do you do all of that? Um, and then also interpersonal dynamic skills as a leader, like how do you use self-awareness and emotional intelligence to be able to communicate with other people? How are you able to be direct and kind? Because when Asian women or women in general, leaders are called bitches for being direct. We're not bitches. We know what we want, but how can you deliver it in a way that's direct and kind? How can you meet the other person where they're at? Like this, it's not just communication skills, it's interpersonal dynamics. So how do you do all of that? Self-compassion. What is your relationship with rest, and how can rest be an example of leadership, and prevent burnout? And
Mm.
man, shall I go
This is
on? You said
so
go to the
many
website at
pieces.
this
Yeah,
point.
this is
Just go to the website. I worked hard on that
yeah.
website.
Go check out the website. Where do they find the website? How do they find more information about this if they're interested?
Go to jiggyyoon.com/leaders. There's a beautiful video with me
I
in
gotta
it.
say, check out the video because what I remember when I saw the video, I was just like scrolling through my phone and I was like, okay, who's this Jiggy person? And I'm like scrolling through, and as soon as I saw the video, I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to take her program.
I wish I was a woman.
Because I can I join? Can I just like be a backup member? Can I audit?
You know,
Uh,
great question, because I put that in the frequently asked questions section. If you are a non-Asian woman listening to this, which means that like you can be a non-Asian woman or you can be an Asian man or just a man in general or everything in between, non-binary, whoever. If you don't identify as an Asian woman, you too can still work with me. It's just that there's a form on my website you got to fill out. But that I answer that question on the website as well.
Good. Okay, that's good.
I'm not gatekeeping myself from people, you know?
Yeah, yeah. We wanna make sure because that energy is so powerful and it's instantaneously infectious, and you can get that too if you go check out Jiggy's website. We'll make sure that link is in the show notes there. Anything else that we or the audience or anyone who want to get to know you better can find you, socials, any of that stuff?
Instagram, Jiggy_Yoon. YouTube, I'm working on my
Instagram.
growing my YouTube. So YouTube, Twitter,
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Anywhere you find social media things.
Yeah, just the typical things.
That is beautiful. Get out there. Step into that what I call big Asian energy, but really it's also just big U energy. It's Jiggy energy. Go check out Jiggy stuff. Incredible story, incredible. Thank you so much for sharing so many pieces of that and so much deep wisdom. Um, can't wait to see what else you create. And damn, thanks for coming on the show, Jiggy.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for holding space. I know I dropped a lot, but that's just true to who I am and my story. And I wanna end this with honoring my parents and Dr. Christopher Yuval. So thank you so much for having me.